Welcome back to the Trader, a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew, a writer and Traitors superfan working in TV development. The Trader features deep dives into every episode of English-speaking versions of the TV phenomenon The Traitors, as well as interviews with contestants from the shows. And this season of the podcast is dedicated to the Traitors UK Series Three. Today we are diving right into the very dramatic episode 5, and to help me do that is someone who will probably look very familiar to you. David has been covering reality TV online, in print, on podcasts, and in videos for over 24 years. He is, as I call him, a reality TV guru. He's a regular co-host on the Trader podcast with me. In fact, he was with me like 2 episodes ago. And if you're a regular listener, you'll know that David has hosted entire seasons of the podcast in my absence and has now begun covering the Traitors US Season 3, which began as we are recording last night. David, you're back already. How have you
I'm
been since
back.
3 days ago?
Yes, it has been quite the podcasting week after having a couple weeks off for me, and yes, I've traded in my cloak for a more casual cloak today.
Yes, I like to describe it as the young and cool traitor.
Yes, that's what people always call me, is the young and cool traitor.
Not
So
surprised.
I think that's how hoodies were actually invented, was by traitors who just, didn't want to go wearing the whole cloak thing for everyday use.
Yeah, they get tangled up. They're like a bit of a
Right.
nuisance. Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, now, very briefly, how is I've not watched the beginning of Traitors US. How is it looking? You've seen the first episode?
Yes, I have only watched the first episode. They dropped three. It's not really fair of you to ask me this before we start the Trade Our Trader game, because now I have to tell you the truth about everything that happened when it was a prime opportunity for me to lie to you about what happened.
Whoops.
But the first episode was good. There is a lot going on. In the podcast, I mentioned several times, as they did in the Traders UK episode blank. So they've already used a challenge from Traders
Hmm.
UK. They are in episode 2. They're going to use the returning challenge in a slightly different way than the returning challenge that happened here, because they didn't have the whole train ride and
Okay.
everything and people volunteering. And so yeah, there's definitely more people on the Traders US who have no clue what's going on. There's at least a couple. There is we didn't know this when we talked. There is another British person.
Okay.
There is Ivar, who is apparently, as he was so named by Bob the drag queen in the show, the first gay royal.
Oh, yes, I read about this person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, we're in the US. As I said last time I was on, that British accent much more trustworthy in the US. So they have to bring a random Brit onto the Traders US.
Yeah.
So
Preferably someone with a connection to Parliament or royalty or Buckingham Palace or something.
those aren't those the only celebs in
Those,
in
those
the
are the only
UK?
places in the UK, actually. And I
And-
guess the obvious thing for listeners is you'll have figured this out that Traitors US is a celebrity cast. That's
yes.
all it is now.
Yes, yes. Lots of housewives from places I've never heard of before. Or rather, I've heard of the places. I shouldn't say that, but like, I did not know there was a Housewives of the Potomac. I did not
Oh
know there
yeah.
was a Housewives of Dubai, which is funny because the woman from Housewives of Dubai had never heard of the Traders before showing up on the show, apparently.
Oh
So,
well.
yeah. So you've got that, and you've got, of course, the Survivor people, a couple of Big Brother people. I'm very happy with the first three traders that were chosen.
Okay.
Not as happy with the twist that adds the fourth one. But we'll. I encourage people to listen. It's just episode 1 for right now, because we wanted to get that done quickly, and then we'll record episodes 2 and 3 As we're recording this, it'll be tomorrow, and so we'll see when it gets posted. It should get posted over the weekend, I would think.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to watching and then listening to my own podcast to find
Yes,
out your thoughts on it. Uh, Now, David mentioned the Traitor game a moment ago. Listeners, I'm sure you know the drill by now, but maybe you've joined us for the first time, so we shall explain our game of deception and betrayal. This is the Traitor. The mission for David and I from here on in is to tell one sneaky lie to one another. The lie must be a fabrication or made up fact, big or small, about the traitors or about ourselves or anything else. For example, I could lie and tell David that Claudia actually has a coulrophobia diagnosis, which is a fear of clowns. However, I couldn't lie and say that I think the clowns were scary if in reality I thought the clowns were really cute and adorable. That would be a fake opinion. So we're looking for fake facts rather than fake thoughts and feelings. At the end of the episode, David and I will guess each other's lies, and listeners, you can join in too and see how good you are at traitor detecting. David, last time we were both amazing traitors because we fooled one
yes,
another.
yes.
Do you think you can catch me out this time?
Probably not.
I am confident I will catch you. I'm going to go with
Oh,
that angle, the
okay,
confidence. I'm
okay.
channeling Armani. I'm going to be amazing at this.
Yeah,
Uh,
and we see how well that worked for her.
oh yeah, damn! I shouldn't have said that. I'll channel Mina. I'll be really
Yeah,
smart.
yeah, that's
Uh,
better. Yes.
our game then begins now, and I think we're
And I'm
ready
going to test
to.
you. Hold on.
Oh,
To see, do you really have a fear of clowns? Ah!
that, I, I don't even know what that is or why you have it. Maybe you'll explain. Maybe you'll come up with some fantastical story in the podcast about why you have that mask.
Well, I was going to save it and just do it when it is appropriate later. But since you mentioned as your fake lie, that's I have it because it was a Halloween costume for one of my sons. But I was cleaning out my storage room over the weekend.
Hmm.
I wasn't actually cleaning it out. I was looking for. It ended up being a clean out, but as I mentioned to you, I was looking for a banner to hang behind me, and found this lovely. Uh, and because although one of my sons typically doesn't have a fear of clowns, he was not at all happy with this. And so we had to take it from the one who was using it as a Halloween costume and hide it. And apparently, we did a very good job of hiding it because. I mean, my sons are both adults now, and so that was probably in there for a decade or more.
Well,
Um,
who knew it would come in handy now for this specific episode of the
yeah,
podcast on the Traitors UK? It was
you just
all
find
worth
all
it.
sorts of new things. Like I mentioned on the Traders US podcast, the cloak that I wore for last time, and probably will be wearing again in the future. I bought that in college, so that thing's like 30 some years old.
Hmm.
So I just you never know. My wife says, "Why won't you throw these things out?" You never know when they could become useful.
I also have a very interesting prop from the Traitors that in the next episode I will be using. So a little tease there to make sure you all come
Hmm.
back and see what that prop is going to be.
Okay. Well, I sorry, but first I have to point out that I was 2 for 2 in predictions on what would happen for episode 4.
Uh, your predictions were correct, and mine were probably wrong.
You were 1 for 2 because I think we both agreed that Kaz would be voted
Oh,
out.
we did.
So
That's right. And I thought that they were going to do some mad, unexpected murder that would just be totally ridiculous. But no, yeah, they
yeah,
went ahead with Maya, which
yeah,
seemed like to us this logical, sensible thing that you
right,
should just do.
right.
Uh, yeah, well done.
And then the only since I was just on the only thought that I had, or the main thought that I had of episode 4 was just me yelling "I told you so" at the 3 players who volunteered to get off the train. And you know so Jack seems like a nice enough guy, but sorry, it's your own fault that you never got the chance to play the game. And then Alexander and Fozy are just lucky. But also, I loved how Kaz messed with them as he left the game.
Yeah, it was a great goodbye speech. Really, really good fun. For now, it's time for us to go ahead. We are going to get into episode 5 of Traitors UK Series 3. This episode begins then with our usual recap of what we need to know. Again, Maya was murdered last time. The players who got off the train come back with shields. And of course, it ends up being Fozia and Alexander who are saved in the mission. And they give their shields to Leanne and Mina. At the round table, there's a big split between Anna, Freddie, and Kaz, and in the end, Kaz gets, I think, maybe just a couple more votes and ends up being banished. And at the end of the episode, the traitors choose to seduce rather than murder, and their options they limit down to either Anna, Freddie, or Fozia. And my co-host Kevin and I from the previous episode, we both predicted that they would choose Fozia. We shall see whether we were right or not. We weren't
Yeah,
right.
I would have predicted either Fozia or Freddy. I would the one that I absolutely would not have predicted because it was a terrible idea if they would do something like that was Anna.
Yeah.
So who would do that?
Well, they did.
Oh God, that was so bad.
That's who.
That was I mean, if you the two options were great. If you want to throw under someone under the bus, you pick Freddie. If you want someone who won't necessarily be suspected, you pick Fozia.
Yeah.
You Anna is the absolute wrong one. Now, Freddie, I can understand because the pressure he was under, he could have just fallen apart and implicated them. Fine,
Mhm.
I understand that. But Anna literally said at the last roundtable that she didn't want to be a traitor. And yeah, I know she could have just been saying it and lying, but the look on her face told me she was being honest. And why would you ever give it to someone or try to give it to someone who has said outwardly, I don't want to be a traitor?
I think they were just focusing on the fact that she received a bunch of votes, and despite what she said, they thought that was
Yeah.
enough to keep her in everybody's mind as a suspect. So, but yeah, I don't think this was the right decision. And by the end of this episode, they both agree. Not even by the end of the episode, quite early on, they
Yeah.
both realize they made a bit of a mistake there. I'll say it's probably the one misstep from Mina so far as I can see. There's a lot in this episode that makes me. It reiterates the idea for me that she is a fantastic traitor.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
So Anna arrives at, the chair. She gets her letter. Dear Anna, and there's something in the letter that I thought was possibly significant. It says, "We chose you because you're a strong, independent woman." And when she read that, it sort of did uh, it stuck in my head, and then I read other people online commenting on it saying, "Is that a little bit of a suggestion that it was other women who chose her? Like, would male
Mm.
traitors use?" I know that's very sort of
Eh.
stereotypical, and I'm being quite basic, but w is it more likely that women would write that to another woman rather than men? I don't know. Maybe Anna wouldn't even consider it, but it stood out to me, and it stood out to some other people.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. I don't think she did.
Hmm.
I think it's I think it's kind of a generic phrase that
Yeah, yeah.
someone might throw in there. She didn't even pay attention to it. She's like, yeah, whatever. They're doing it so they can throw me under the bus.
Yeah, I think if Ellen was still around, remember Ellen was stuck on this theory that the traitors were
Hmm.
women, she would have picked up on it. She would have been like, wait a
Yes.
minute.
Yes.
So Anna doesn't know what to do. She gets upset. She says they're using this to scapegoat me. They're going to throw me under the bus, and I'm going to have to stand up there and say I'm a traitor. And I think, well, you're right. That I think that is what they were trying to do.
Hmm.
But however, maybe it's not going to work. So we go back to Traitor's Tower, and um, Linda and Mina are waiting, but Anna does not appear. Claudia appears, and she tells them that Anna has refused the offer. We go back to Anna saying, "This is such bad gameplay because they're going to kill me, but I don't want to join." And I'm kind of torn because on one hand I think, well, if you're acknowledging it's bad gameplay, why are you doing it? But I also think, she's kind of damned if she does, damned if she doesn't. I
Right.
think she just doesn't see a way out. And I guess it's a question of what's the bigger threat? Is the bigger threat being murdered by the traitors in a day, or is the bigger threat you're going to get banished by the other players? I I would still have just accepted the offer because I think you've got more of a chance of you've got more control over banishment. You've at least got a chance to sort
Hmm.
of defend yourself and throw the blame on someone else and escape votes for a while. You can't really protect yourself against murder unless you've got a shield. I think that you're totally at the mercy of the traitor's
Right.
whim at that point. What I mean, what do you think she should have done?
I mean, either of us are always going to say you should have accepted it because, both of us would want to go on there and be traitors.
Yeah,
She clearly came onto the show not wanting to be a traitor. And if you come on with that as your goal, first of all, I do think as a game player, you should recognize that it's possible you will still be recruited and made a
yeah,
traitor. And you should recognize that traitors tend to win more often.
yeah.
So, with those things, yes, you should do it. But if you truly do not want to be a traitor, and you think you'd be, as you Brits say, rubbish at it, uh, then I guess I can see it. I don't know. I also thought she was about to get murdered because I thought when someone refused a recruitment, there still was a murder that night. So I was
Okay.
surprised when Claudia came back in and said, "Now you can't have a murder." And so, I mean, it does in some ways help prevent the traitors, at least, from turning on Anna for banishment because they don't gain what they otherwise would have.
Yeah.
If they push really hard and she turns out to be a faithful, then they just look suspicious. I don't know. I can understand her reasoning for it. And it's not as bad a game move as, for example, refusing a blackmail. But who would ever do that? I mean, we've never seen anyone do that. So I guess I can see it in her case, but it's it's not a good game move.
Yeah. And just to let listeners in case some of you aren't quite aware of that reference, blackmail means you're offered recruitment, but the choice is become a traitor or immediately be murdered from the game.
Yes.
And yes, you would think, well, I don't want to be murdered, so I'm going to have to. But you may think wrong if you watch other versions of this show from different countries. So yeah, Linda and Mina are really disappointed at Claudia giving them this news, and we move to breakfast the next day. Fozia and Alexander arrive first. Of course, this is their first sort of real day in the
Hmm.
game. They're actually playing now. They can vote tonight at round table and they can receive votes and they could be murdered tomorrow. And also they could be targets, of course, for other people. And Fozia even recognizes, yeah, we might be the targets of suspicion because we've just arrived. People might be wondering if we've come in as traitors. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I thought Linda and Mina would choose her for seduction.
Right.
Actually, I think the opposite reason of what you suggested. I thought they might pick Fozia because people would be suspicious of her as a newbie and they don't know as much about her. But hey,
I I thought about that as well, that they might, because it was announced they could come in as faithful or traitor,
yeah,
that some people might be suspicious. So yeah, it could have gone either way on that one. I feel like Fozia very quickly earned some trust. I'm not quite sure how, but at least in the early goings, it seemed that way. The interesting thing to me about this, them being the first two, was Alexander said, "Oh, we have a lot of catching up to do in the game," and I'm thinking, yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't have gotten off the train.
yeah, very good point. Joe arrives quite soon after and is totally aware that he messed up at round table with his suspicions of Kaz and going so hard for him. We've got Freddie. He's still feeling the kind of emotional aftermath of round table. He got really upset last night. Mina arrives. She tells the others that she's well rested because she reveals the shield. She was protected from murder last night, further cementing the idea that she's this like amazing faithful. Francesca talks to Fozia a little bit about Freddie. She says she regrets writing down his name last night, and she says this thing. She says that, well, I've got two teenage sons, and that the mummy and me wants to protect him now. And I sort of think, well, you still voted for him, so you don't feel that bad.
Yeah,
And
right. It's like she felt bad after she voted for him and he was still there, so she had to look at him. If he had been gone, then it would be like, yeah, I mean, if he had been gone and a traitor, she wouldn't have felt bad. If he had been gone and a faithful, she'd have felt bad, but I think she'd have gotten over it pretty quickly.
yeah. And again, there's this weird speculation online about Francesca being Freddie's mum. Like, and that's why they're including clips of her saying she's got sons. I don't believe this for a moment. Kevin and I
No.
talked about this on the previous episode, and Kevin said that Freddie's there's if you go looking, Freddie has put pictures of his mum online or something, so it's kind of debunked that theory.
Well, also,
Uh,
she voted for him. Would you vote for your own son? Risk sending him out? They
yeah,
would have made such a big deal. Production would have made such a big deal about that. There's no way they would have kept that a secret.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I
I
mean,
just not believing this at all. And it's I mean it's only episode 5. I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah, she like you're suggesting. If she's still got the choice of plenty of people, I don't think she
right,
would be doing that this early on.
right.
Linda arrives next. She knows that yeah, that she and Mina made the wrong move last night, but they don't know whether Anna is going to tell people about what happened. There's then this crucial moment, I think, in the episode, something that takes on great significance.
Mm,
Lisa is sitting beside Leanne, and she asks, sort of, around about her, oh, who had the shield? And then Leanne, I would describe it as sort of half whispers. She sort of quite
yeah.
subtly says to her, I've got the shield. So Lisa quietly replies, oh. Leanne then makes a big deal out of this.
Oh,
She
yeah.
turns to Mina, who's sitting close by, and says, oh, she just had this weird reaction. I told her I had the shield, and she almost looked disappointed. She just sort of said, oh, really quietly, that means she's a traitor. Um, I, I've watched the episode a couple of times. I think Lisa was simply mirroring Leanne because Leanne was saying it quietly as if she hadn't told everyone yet. So I think Lisa just didn't want to blow her cover, so just quietly agreed, or not agreed, you just sort of acknowledged it. That's
Hmm.
all. I mean, and obviously we know that Lisa's not a traitor,
Right.
but yeah, I think Leanne really jumped on something insignificant and
On the traitors?
yeah. I just don't know how she read it so wrong because yeah, again, I just thought she was
I,
kind of whispering to Lisa, so Lisa just whispered back. That's all.
I have a theory about this. I'll hold off until we hear more from Leanne. I
Okay.
do think you missed a very important moment, which was the four people who walked in at the same time were Leon, Leanne, Linda, and Lisa. So all L's walked in at the same time, which which was a little confusing at first. All these L names. I actually thought that she was talking about Linda, that Linda had
Hmm.
reacted that way. And it wasn't until she was retelling the story later that I realized she was talking about Lisa. And then, yeah, the other thing is, why are you, well, as the others come in, because I think Charlotte and Anna and others and Tyler and Livy, and when everyone eventually gets in, they're all acting so surprised, and this plays into, Leanne. And I don't know why they're acting surprised because they knew the traders were down a number. So of course recruitment is an option, and early in the game, it's almost obvious that they would do it.
Yeah.
So why are you all surprised nobody was murdered and acting like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely a new thing?
I I guess maybe they're surprised because there were in the last episode there was still a murder even though there were only two traitors. So after the previous mission when a bunch of people got the shield at the Ring of Fire, Claudia didn't give them the option that night for some reason. So I guess like there's already been a day when they were a traitor down and there was still a murder. But
That's true. If they didn't know what Claudia told the traders, that you're not allowed to recruit because there's already a vulnerable list,
mhm.
then I suppose we could give them the benefit of the doubt that they didn't know that.
And it seems to
Fine,
be
fine. I won't criticize them on that point.
it seems to be Dan. Dan is the one who kind of, and maybe it's just editing, maybe they want him to appear clever, but it looks like Dan is the first to say, "Oh right, here's what's happened. Either
Hmm.
the traitors went for Leanne, but she's got a shield, or they've
Right.
recruited." So he's like on the ball, he understands the game, he knows what's going on. Um, the whole time we've got Anna coming in, she doesn't know if she should tell people about
Right.
the offer of recruitment. The Charlotte asks everybody about shields. Leanne then sort of reveals to everybody that she has it, which
Hmm.
reiterates what I thought before, that she was only quietly saying it to Lisa. Um, Tyler and Livy are the last to return, and yeah, and up until that moment, everybody assumes one of them is going to be murdered, but they
Right.
don't. They both come in, and we've got another clip of Anna. She says, "If I tell people about what happened last night, they're going to think I'm lying, and if I don't tell, I'm going to die anyway." I assume she means I'm going to get banished anyway. She didn't use the word murder or banish. She just said I'm going to die.
One
Um,
way or the other, I guess she figures.
yeah. Claudia arrives. She tells them, obviously you're all here, and lets them know that she can neither confirm nor deny why everyone is here. And that's sort of quite usual. Somebody sent me a message on Instagram, I think, saying,
Hmm.
"Oh, well, will Claudia tell them what happened?" But no, I'm not
No.
surprised that she
Yeah.
doesn't ever reveal why everybody's come back. So she hints at the mission. She tells them a little bit about it, that they'll be working in pairs, but there's an odd number, so someone will have to work alone. She says, "I'll see you at the mission. It's going to be a scream."
Yeah.
Uh,
Now, you skipped over a very important part,
oh,
which is that she's talking about Alexander and Phozia's first
is it the
breakfast.
breakfast?
Yes, including watermelon and pickles. And I was like, pickles? Pickles for breakfast? Is this actually a British or Scottish thing? Pickles for breakfast?
Absolutely. No, I could have used this as Malay and said,
Oh,
"Yeah,
yes.
that's
Good point.
obviously
I've
that's
set you up
like
there even.
I had that this morning. I had
Yeah.
watermelon and pickles. What are you talking about?" No, absolutely not.
Okay.
That's why Claudia is bringing attention to it because it's so weird.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
you never know. I mean, I didn't know that Brits, until I had my first full English breakfast, I never would have thought baked beans was a breakfast food. So, uh,
When else would you have it?
dinner.
Oh, well,
It's a
yeah.
side item. Like you go to a barbecue restaurant and it's a side item. But definitely, like there's a place called Mission Barbecue down the street that does it when I go to visit my son in Texas. Beans are always a side item for that. And of course, in like Western movies and stuff, they always got the can of beans as they're sitting
Yeah,
around the
yeah.
campfire, and that's not breakfast; that's a dinner. So yeah, I was very surprised at
Beans are
that. So
an all time of day food
I
in the UK.
I think bacon is an all time of day food. I don't know about beans. So
Uh, so yes, we find out about their weird breakfast. You're right. I did skip that. I thought it wasn't that important, but
pickles for breakfast is pretty important.
so once they've sorted out breakfast, uh, Dan at this point already says that he won't mind being the person who's on their own in the mission. Leanne asks Leon, he's right next to her, "Well, can we pair up?" And Mina makes a bit of a joke of it. Leanne then says, "Yeah, we're like an old married couple." Again, there is speculation online that Leon and Leanne, see that's it's
Hmm.
tricky.
Right.
Leon and Leanne are like a secret couple and they actually are married and that's why they're making this joke and that's why it's getting time in the edit. That's I could kind of believe like if this turns out to be a real twist. I believe it far more than Francesca being Freddie's mum. Um, but I mean I still wouldn't bet money on it. I think people are just getting carried
Especially
away.
especially with that clip. It's a perfect time to do the same
The
thing they
reveal,
did
yeah.
last season with a clip of Leanne saying, "Huh, I wonder why we act like an old married couple. Is it
Yeah,
because
we
we
are.
are?" You know.
Yeah, you're right. This would have been the moment to do it, but hey. So yeah, I don't think they really are. Maybe I'm
No.
wrong.
No.
After breakfast, then we've got some castle chat. Anna still feels really bad about everything that happened last night, but she can't fully explain. Why? She can only talk about the fact that she got some votes at round table. Lisa kind of attempts to make amends with her, and she implies, I don't suspect you anymore. You don't need
Hmm.
to worry about me. Anna's not buying it. She just thinks, nah, something's weird here. She's up to something. She's probably a traitor. In fact, Anna then goes straight to Leanne to have a chat about Lisa. And Leanne shares this moment that should have meant nothing, but ends up
Yes.
meaning something. She says, "Oh, well, actually, Lisa had this moment with me at breakfast. I told her I had the shield, and she had this really muted reaction." For now, though, Anna is still keeping her secret. She could have maybe used this moment to tell Leanne what happened last night. She doesn't. She's not telling anyone yet.
Yeah. The other thing about Leanne, and this is what I said I was going to get to, I didn't remember it was so soon after, was that she talks not just to Anna but to others about how she believes the traitors went for her and the shield saved her.
Yeah, yeah,
And I said before that I like how she thinks, but this is some serious main character energy we're getting from her. Like she thinks the whole thing revolves around her. And we're sitting here knowing the traitors haven't even discussed her as a
yeah.
serious contender for murder, but she's out there thinking they must be after me. The only reason I survived is the shield. And so, which of course also will come into play in the mission. But it's just like no Leanne, they weren't after you actually.
Yeah, I thought the same thing at breakfast when she immediately went, "Oh,
Right.
they tried to get me."
Yeah.
No, they didn't. So Tyler is he's still kind of focused on Freddie as being his main suspect. Mina is really this is a great bit of Mina. We see lots of these little moments of Mina doing clever things. She's consoling Freddie. She's very good at being comforting and caring and get she's
Hmm.
good at getting people to open up to her. It's great. She does it to several people in this episode. Um, she's also then using this moment to help Freddie push the idea that there's this little clique, a group amongst Leanne, Tyler, Leon, and Livy. And Freddie's like, yeah, I've sort of noticed that too. So, Mina's planting a little seed. I've noticed they're a group. That's something a bit suspicious about that. Why are they always only talking to one another? And this is something that grows throughout the episode as well.
Yeah, she planted that seed, and that was she got a whole garden from one seed
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
one.
Which is funny because actually, jumping ahead, away at the end of the episode in Traitors Tower, she tells Linda, like, God, I didn't see that coming. They got out. But actually, she kind of helped start it in its
Right.
inception,
I just don't think she saw. I don't think anyone could have foreseen
how quickly it
how.
shifted. And
Yes, yes, and I mean we'll get there, but I think a lot of it, even though she planted the seed, I credit Freddie with a lot of what will
mm,
eventually happen here.
okay. And also think a lot of it is Leon's fault for getting so defensive about something he
Oh
doesn't need to
God.
be defensive about.
Yes. Yeah.
But yes, we will definitely get there after
Mm.
the mission. But just before the mission, actually, that we've got another group outside. There's Charlotte, Alex, Dan. They're also talking about Tyler, and they think, everybody respects Tyler. He's a popular guy. Everybody thinks he's faithful, but they think equally maybe that's something that we should be looking at. And they talk about the fact that he apparently is kind of taken credit for the banishment of Armani, when
Hmm.
actually, before she was banished, he wasn't looking at her at all. And Dan says, if we go for Tyler, we have to go for him first time. Like, we would have to get him out tonight. It couldn't
Right.
be a mess. Time for the mission then. Again, I just want to say I've been reading lots of comments online about missions. A lot of people still saying negative things. They're boring. We don't like them. They're pointless. I definitely think this is the worst mission of the season so far. It's just sort of quite silly. I mean, it's fine. It's entertaining.
How could you say that?
It's
How dare
just
you?
for various reasons. It's just a bit sort of fluffy and doesn't do much. And I didn't really need to take that many notes when I was watching it. I did read one interesting comment online. Someone somewhere on YouTube or something suggested what they ought to do with the missions is make them much, much harder to pass. I'm kind of on board with that. Someone said they should really be something that need a lot of skill or physical strength or whatever to therefore make the quality of being good at missions something very desirable. So sometimes in different seasons of the Traitors, we hear traitors talking about who they want to murder. And occasionally they'll say things like, oh, we should keep them around because they'll be
Right.
good at missions. But I always think that's doesn't matter. Like generally they pass the missions, generally they win the money. It's not a big
Hmm.
deal. So yeah, this user online was saying, what if it was really difficult to pass missions and get money? Maybe that would then make being good at missions a very desirable
So
quality.
so this was just a random user online, not someone who wrote into the podcast.
No, it was a comment on you, not even the podcast. I know I shouldn't be looking at other podcasts, but
Yeah, how dare
it
you?
was a generic entertainment
Okay, well
podcast.
then I'll feel free to criticize them and rake them over the coals then, since they're
Okay.
not a listener here. Yeah, I have heard this sort of thing about Survivor for years. Oh, they should make it more challenge based and they should make it harder and da, da, da. Now that's not what these games are. These games are not the challenge.
Hmm.
If you want something based on how good you are at a challenge, go on the challenge. That this is a strategic social game. And yes, there are challenges in there. Yes, these challenges don't mean a whole lot usually. There's something to it. And like you said, they have sometimes they'll say, well, we need this person, for that. But if you start making the challenges that way, then you're going to have a situation where it gets heavily weighted in favor of like voting out the women,
Yeah.
which was a topic that came up at the U.S. episode one with the rowing. There was a initial bias towards pushing the women to volunteer to get off, and so I see that going even worse in the case if you start doing that. And then, like I said, on Survivor, occasionally there will be fans who are like, "Well, I just want the people who win the challenges to do it." No, that's not the show. That's not what it's about. So it's a part of the show, but it shouldn't be the focus of the show.
Yeah. I do agree that although I complain about the missions sometimes,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't want to watch a big physical. I'm not watching Gladiators. So
Yeah.
you're right. I'm watching it for the social strategy and the reality and the discussion at the round table. So yeah, I don't really care about people being amazing at big physical missions.
Yeah.
I
And
guess
if
the counter is that well, the missions don't need to be physical. Maybe it's like sort of mental, sort of
Right.
intelligence based tasks and stuff like that. But
And
I
and
get
that's
you,
true, but usually if you want something big for TV, it's going to be physical. And
yeah,
now
yeah.
Survivor addresses this by it's almost gotten to be, well, it has gotten to be a cliche. They'll have a big physical challenge and then it'll come down to the puzzle at the end,
Yeah.
quite frequently. And so they get, the big thing for TV, but then also people using their brains have a chance at it. And and there obviously are traders challenges where it's about using your brains. But something like this that's bigger and flashier, or the fire ring or the exploding the giant trader, something like that. Those are the things that are more for a TV
Mhm.
audience.
And as for this mission, before we even get to it, we're in the Jeeps. There's still a bit of focus on Freddie
Hmm.
from the L group, the Leon and
Yeah.
Leanne and Livy. Uh, Jake, on the other hand, is still kind of focused on Linda. And he's sitting with Fozia, and Fozia's more suspicious of Lisa. And they
Hmm.
sort of decide between them, oh well, one of them must be a traitor then. Like
Right.
it's kind of a and it comes up again in the episode a couple of times that yeah, just because Jake says, well, I think it's Linda, Fozia says, well, I think it's Lisa, and they just sort of agree, well, it's one of them.
Yeah.
And the thing
Yeah.
is, they're right, but I don't really know what the reasoning is. And Joe, I'm skipping ahead, but Joe says something really similar later. He sort of was like, well, it's one of them. I don't, is it because they have all just sort of deduced like an older woman would be like a predictable kind of demographic? So it's oh well, it's one of the older women, is it that?
I think it's also because they hang out together. One of them later says, and
Mm,
I have it in my notes later, but since we're not there yet, one of the later says, well, one of them's a traitor and the other is under her wing.
yeah.
And that's a pretty typical thing to happen on the traders. So I think that's why they have suspicions on both of them. They
Hmm.
just don't know which. So they you know, they do the thing of, well, we'll just compromise and say that it's one of
This
them.
one.
It's like one of them is saying 1 + 1 = 2, the other is saying 1 + 1 = 4, and they kind of meet in the middle and say, well, it must be three then.
Mhm. Yeah. The mission commences then, and we know, well, we suspected Dan is going to work alone and everybody else is in pairs. Anyone just listening to the audio of this, I've realized you'll have no idea why I just sort of suddenly keep bursting into laughter. You'll have to watch on YouTube to figure out what David is doing at this moment. So, each pair in this mission has to carry a golden balloon through a series of doors. It's David's still on it, um, without it being burst. And each sort of layer of doors has only one correct door to pass through. It's like a maze with a correct path all the way through it. If they pick the wrong door, it will open and their balloons will pop. Claudia tells them. She doesn't tell them how it's going to pop. So the pairs, and I'm now been David's not even on the podcast anymore. He's just sort of been replaced by this new strange co-host. The the pairs as they go through the maze, they have to loudly describe the doors that they're choosing to help the others who are going to come after them. Claudia tells them the first pair to make it to the end will win a shield. So obviously that means that going first makes it incredibly unlikely you
Yeah,
will get a shield. So you'd probably not want to do that. However, Lisa and Linda volunteer what seems like pretty quickly. And so obviously everyone is now suspicious of them. Like, why did they didn't even think about that. They didn't even worry that they weren't going to get a shield. And this is where Joe reiterates this idea. He says, I just thought, well, one of you's a traitor, so it doesn't matter if you get immunity or not. So yeah, Linda and Lisa, they go ahead, they pick a door in the first section of the game, and we discover why the balloon is going to get popped. It's because an evil clown, much like David is holding right now, will burst out of the door and pop the balloon. I should have brought a balloon on. That's what I really, if I
I
was
know. I thought
prepared.
about that afterwards.
It's I should have it's my housemate's birthday at the weekend. There's a balloon downstairs
Oh,
somewhere. I should have got that. I should call him now and get him up. So yeah, we know how the balloons are going to get popped now. So we should maybe just cover like the obvious thing. I was watching this and thinking, well, why don't they, instead of describing the patterns on the door, why don't they just
yes.
say it's door one or two or it's
That's
door A, B, C, D? And lots of people online were saying that as well. However, I'm going to present the obvious counter argument. They've clearly been told by production
right.
they can't do that. Like it would be
Right.
too easy. So they must have been told you can't use letters, you can't use numbers. You have to just describe the patterns. That's how we want you to play this game. So
Yeah, that's the same thing I was thinking at first. I was like, why aren't they doing it? And then when they get all the way to the end, eventually, and they still never use it, I'm like, okay, obviously they were told that. It's like a debate I got into. I call it a debate. I hesitate to call it a debate. With someone on Instagram, I posted something about a Beast Games game where they were balancing a glass ball, and the glass ball was kind of like it had like a fishbowl top, so it wasn't a full ball. It had a circle at the end. So you
mhm.
could have just taken it and putting it flat and it wouldn't have moved anywhere. And no one did. And this person is like, well, they're all stupid. They should have just put it on the flat side. And I was like, well, okay, it's obvious that production told them they
Yeah.
couldn't do that, that was, because nobody, well, we didn't hear that in the rules. So it must have been that they were just, they just didn't think to do it. I'm like, believe it or not, they don't read off every single rule to us
Yeah.
when they're doing these games. And I said, the fact that nobody thought to do what is obvious to anyone watching tells me it was production.
Yeah.
And they just stormed off in a huff, or maybe insulted me and I blocked them. I don't remember anymore. I get into so many of these. But yes, if there is something that is so obvious that we can all see it and players don't do it,
There's a reason.
then
Yeah.
yeah, there's a reason, like you
Yeah.
said.
We can probably I'm kind of going to skip through how the mission actually plays out, basically, because it's inconsequential. Various couples, fail along the way. until Leanne and Leon make it through to the end first, which means they bank the whole group, £1,000, but they also gain a shield each. Four more couples then make it through after them, so they make 5k from this whole challenge. They all leave, go back to the Jeeps, and Claudia is chased off by a clown in a very
Yes.
clippable, funny moment. I've already seen it in various places, just this morning on
Darn
Instagram
it,
and
I
stuff like
haven't
that.
done that yet. I have that, because I was normally when I'm watching these shows, I clip things as I'm watching to, post on my various uh, video channels. But in this case, because I was watching this and then I was watching US and then I was podcasting US and then podcasting this and all within the span of like 12 hours and, allegedly slept in that time frame too, that I wrote down like notes. Okay, go to find, I could find this here and go back later. So I haven't even clipped it yet. So it's annoying to me that other people already have.
I've shared it to the podcast Instagram story. The BBC themselves just did a little clip of it on like the Traitors page or the BBC iPlayer Instagram page.
That's
So they know that people
annoying.
are like laughing at it. In fact, I didn't watch the episode live last night. I was sort of
Hmm.
about an hour behind. And my sister, who's a big fan of the show and has been watching the podcast, she texted me saying, "Oh, are you watching live?" And I said, "No, I'm going to be behind tonight." So she knew not to spoil anything, but about
Hmm.
half an hour later, she just sent me like 10 laughing emojis. And I thought, okay, something really funny's happened.
Yeah.
And I got to this bit and I sent her a message saying, "Were you laughing at Claudia being chased by a clown?" And she replied, "Yes." So back to the Jeeps, back to the
Yeah, wow, I
castle.
took a lot more notes than you did
Oh, I took
about
no
this, but
notes on this mission
I'm
because I
perfectly
just
happy to blow through. I just thought it was interesting. They had to like walk through manure and
and bubbles
they
and or
uh, but,
foam.
look, yeah, I couldn't tell if that was foam or cotton candy, or I think you guys call it sugar floss or something like
We
that.
call it candy floss.
Candy floss. And it seemed like it could be cotton candy or candy floss, but nobody referenced it. So, like, if it were me, I'd have grabbed some. But uh, it also seemed like there were water balloons being thrown at them at one
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
um, which I thought was another way to pop the balloon, maybe, but it seemed easily
Uh,
avoidable. And so, uh, yeah, I think that. My other thing is, I think that the clown was actually Jack getting his revenge. That they were like, okay, you could stay on the show, but here's what you need to do.
yeah, we'll pay you a day rate, so
Yeah,
you got a little bit of work.
yeah.
I love that thought. In the Jeeps back to the castle, we've got a little bit from Lisa thinking about the mission, and she says this really funny thing. She goes, "I suppose, on reflection, going in the middle was the best option." I
Mhm.
thought, yeah,
On
why didn't you think about
reflection,
that sooner?
yeah.
It's like she suddenly realized, oh yeah, going first probably did mean we weren't going to win anything or win a shield. Some players are again discussing the Leon group,
Hmm.
and Mina is really amping up this suspicion. She's taking the opportunity and she's explaining, yeah, if you only ever speak to like four other people, there probably is a really good chance you're being blindsided by someone. You're being used by a traitor. And I just thought it was another example of her jumping on the right
Right.
moments very cleverly and planting seeds and doing a good job of not being completely quiet all the time,
Hmm.
which is as suspicious as anything else. So
Right.
she is being quite vocal and putting out some clever. She's really thinking like a faithful, like a an inquisitive faithful.
Well, and the other thing is, she didn't necessarily push towards Tyler.
No,
She just
yeah,
said there must be someone in the group.
yeah,
So if someone turns around and says, but Tyler ended up being a faithful, she's like, well, I didn't say it had to be
yeah,
Tyler. You
exactly.
guys jumped on that. The real reason they went after Tyler is his name doesn't begin with an L. So he,
Of course.
he must be the one, the different one.
Yeah, he doesn't fit.
Yeah.
We've got, I think we sort of get back to the castle at this point.
Hmm.
Fozia talks to, yeah, she's talking to Linda and she's asking, why did you volunteer to go first in the mission? And Linda sort of just laughs it off and says, oh,
Hmm.
me and Lisa, we're the oldies. We took one for the team. Ha ha ha. And Fozia then says, well, to be fair, we were all getting together to discuss what to do. And I've watched the episode twice. I don't think they were actually the moment where I'm defending Linda here.
Hmm.
Linda and Lisa when they volunteered, everyone around them was they were not in a big group talk. There was a couple of people were like whispering to each other. At the moment they volunteered, Fozia was saying nothing. So I think Fozia is exaggerating a little bit here. I don't think there was much of a group discussion. I mean, Fozia is right to be suspicious, and she's right
Right,
because one of them is a traitor.
right.
But I'm sort of nitpicking. Um, then we've got Fozia, Lisa, and Francesca in the kitchen, and Linda. I don't know if you think that this is fair play and this is just what you do in these games, but when Linda comes in and sort of very conspicuously says, "Lisa,
Hmm.
can I grab you for a chat?" I think it's not a great look. It just makes them look even more suspicious, particularly to Fozia. And I get that people regularly have little quiet chats and
Hmm.
pull one another aside. I just think Linda was like it was the wrong timing here. I just don't think it's a good look.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. The only thing I can think of is if they knew that they only had a short time before confessional
yeah, maybe.
filming and then the round table. But yeah, especially since Fozia obviously can't spread this theory if Linda or Lisa are in the room with them.
Hmm
And so pulling Lisa out of the room allows Fozia to spread that theory and adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and the reason that Linda's pulling Lisa out of the room is because she just wants to tell her, "Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
mad that Fozia questioned us." Which, yeah, it's kind of ironic because it's like, well, no wonder she's questioning you. Look what you're doing right now.
Right.
Uh, and then we cut to Linda in her interview clip saying she is annoyed at Fozia. She's too astute. She's too clever. She's got to go. Um, which is that a bit of foreshadowing for the next murder?
Hmm.
We don't know. In the what I'm calling the billiards room, Charlotte asks Freddie, "Well, who do you suspect? Like, your name's coming up a lot. Who do you think the traitors are?" And this is the moment. He
Yes.
suggests, "Well, maybe it's someone from Tyler's cliquey group."
Yes.
Tyler gets so defensive about this. He's like, "We're not a clique." And the group again is Leon, Tyler, Leanne, and Livy. And I think, as a viewer, I'm like, yeah, you are. Like, I can see
So
that you're a group.
so let me ask you this. Does click have more of an implication, a meaning in the UK?
That's it's funny you asked that because I kind of made a note about it. I would say it does have some negative connotations. Yeah, it is a kind of loaded word. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's by no
Hmm.
means like a slanderous thing to say, but I do think it has some negative connotations of sort of elitism or secrecy or a group that's deliberately isolates itself from other people and perhaps looks down on them. So yeah, it kind of is a negative word, but I don't think that's probably that different to I don't think that's a British reading of
Yeah,
that
I
word.
mean, I guess I was never in a clique, so uh, but I guess it has some of that similar meaning. But they act like
It's the
he just
worst
called
thing.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, elitist is the word that you just chose. That it that's how they took it. It seems that he said they were a bunch of elitists and didn't want to deal with other people. That seems to be how they took it, or as if he had said, "You're in an alliance,"
yeah.
which they also are or were. Um, but it's interesting because later in all of this back and forth discussion, not to skip ahead, when Freddie, not to skip ahead as I do, Freddie eventually says, "Well, I don't even really know what a click means," and I think he does, but he didn't expect them to react the way that they
Yeah.
did, which makes him question whether he knows what a click means.
Yeah, they make him think that he's misunderstood that word, and I don't think he
Yeah,
has. You're right.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it sort of blows out of all proportion for a while. It does sort of simmer back down again. Livy just sort of begins her, for the rest of the episode, emotional breakdown. She keeps telling Freddie he looks guilty, and she goes off on one. She says, "I know I'm going to be murdered tonight, and I know that if I am, it's because
hmm
you're the traitor." She even sort of stands up. She really loses her cool. She's kind of
oh
raising her
yeah,
voice at him. Tyler's like sitting in a chair, like he's not shouting at anybody. He's not being aggressive as far as I can see. And he's like, "Look, man, I'm just like throwing some things out there. My suspicions are quite random." And she just keeps telling him, "No, you're constantly looking at me in a guilty way,"
Right.
which we know this is wrong because he's not a traitor. She's incredible. You know, we'll probably talk more about Livy at the end, but very, very sensitive, incredibly sensitive.
Yeah,
Um, Great
she
TV, but
yes, she blows it up completely. And he accuses him multiple times, but she can't so while she's accusing him, she cannot handle the idea that he would dare suggest that someone in their group, he's not even saying it's her. He's
yeah,
saying someone in their group. She is assuming that he's saying it's her.
yeah,
And then it just keeps getting worse because Leon, uh, you know, gets up and leaves as he mutters something about the clicky group while the women just keep hammering poor Freddie. I I feel so bad for Freddie and all of this. The kid's 20 years old and there's all these grown ass adults beating on him, verbally. And and he's just like, what is going on here? And yeah, Mina is loving this, of course.
oh yeah,
Not that she has anything against Freddie. She's just loving the way it's going up. And then, Livy cries and leaves and says nobody's listening to her. And all I could think of is, no, Livy, you're the one who's not listening.
yeah.
Everyone is listening to your click, at least had been up till this point. Nobody was listening to poor Freddie until he used the word click, and then all of a sudden all hell broke loose.
Yeah, I made the exact same note about the idea of sort of not being able to being able to dish something out but not take it.
Yeah.
I noted that it feels like this group is very happy to keep accusing Freddy, which is fine, that's the game, but they can't handle it when
Mm-hmm.
he who is one single person suggests that one of them might be a traitor. It's what, and again, I've watched it a couple of times, and both times I just found this whole scene wild, and yeah, felt really bad for Freddie, who, unlike last night, he actually doesn't. He copes pretty well with it. I think he doesn't run off and cry to Linda in the corridor. Um, there's a funny thing that happens right after this as well, which is at least some of them are in the library. Leon's there, and Mina comes in to talk, and she's got this really great way of controlling the room, almost like
Mm-hmm.
she can speak about the same issue but incredibly calmly, and she says. I understand why some people might think you're a clique or a group. She says sometimes the four of you are together and I don't feel like I can interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, the way that Mina says it, Leon now seems to take heed of it and he's like, oh, okay, maybe this is a problem. We've also got Leanne talking to Freddie alone right after this. And yeah, things calm down, maybe now that Livy's not in the room. So the two of them are able to speak about it a bit more calmly. And Leanne is like, well, look, if you're not a traitor, you've still not given us a name. Who do you think it is? And he sort of suggests, well, it could be Tyler.
Right.
And I guess this is where everything starts to really shift. This is like the turning point of the episode, I guess. Because we suddenly cut to Leanne in her confessional, and she says, actually, now I don't think Freddie is a traitor. And now I'm really worried about Tyler. Although I do have to say, she did say this in a previous episode. This isn't the first time she said this. She did say she was maybe suspicious. It was because at the round table he turned against Kaz rather than go for Freddie, and she thought that that
Mm-hmm.
was suspicious. Um, Leon also appears back in the room at this point, and Leanne tells him, actually, yeah, I don't think Freddie's a traitor anymore. So Leon, the thing about Leon in this whole situation is he's so concerned that he's been seen as part of a clique. Like it's the worst thing that anyone could accuse him of. And he thinks that Tyler is at the center of it and it's all Tyler's fault. And now he
Right.
becomes paranoid about it. On the other hand, we've got a whole different chat about a different person. Outside, some of the players are talking about Lisa. It's Francesca, Joe, and Charlotte. And Francesca is talking about she's this religious thing that bugs her. She's referring to Lisa, who in
Mm-hmm.
episode one, maybe two, said that she said, "As God is my witness, I'm a faithful." And
Yeah, and
for some
remember,
reason, it
I mentioned this on the episode 3 podcast. I said it would have made more sense for her to say that if they knew she was a priest.
yeah, yeah,
So, yay, score one for me.
yeah. I still find it weird that I don't know why they make such a big deal out of it. Like I maybe it's just me. I think if someone said that, I just don't think it would catch my attention. I don't think it would bother me or arouse suspicion.
I mean, they said the religious stuff, so maybe she said more than that, and this
Yeah,
was just the
yeah.
one phrase that stuck in their mind.
I wonder.
But yeah, I mean, I've heard that phrase. I, I guess I don't hear it that often because I don't hang out with people who would say it that often. But I mean, isn't that even from a movie? Is that from oh gosh, old movie with Scarlett O'Hara? Doesn't she say, "As God is my witness, I will never
Like
go
Gone with the
hungry
Wind.
again"? Yeah, doesn't she say that in that
I
movie?
only
Or
seen Gone with the Wind once because it's
okay,
about 4 hours long. So
yeah, it was a long time ago. I feel like that's a famous enough
okay,
phrase.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, I guess it's a little bit different. And I also, for that matter, wouldn't necessarily expect a priest to say that. You know, I mean, how often does a priest need to say, "As God is my witness, this is true"? You know, I mean, you're a priest. We know they don't always tell the truth, but that should be the assumption if you're the priest talking.
yeah, yeah. Yes, it's all very interesting, and of
Mm-hmm.
course it comes back later on in the episode in a big way. Um, just before the round table, we've got a little moment of Dan. He comes to confide in Mina, which we see more of later. And he tells her it's Tyler tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So Mina's really shocked, and she's sort of saying like, "Where did that come from?" But I just thought this was another great example of Mina having placed herself really well to get heads up from people like
Right.
this. So it seems like several players don't mind revealing things to her. They she obviously just has the confidence of people. I don't think she's under any suspicion at all from anyone. It's
Oh, I
it's
agree.
it's
Yeah.
kind of the best thing that I'm enjoying about the season actually. It's just watching Mina and how good she is at this. I hope she keeps it up.
I do too. I'm worried that at some point they will do what they are in the midst of doing here, which is we have to look at the people that we haven't looked at
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
and then completely flip to her. But I don't know if I had to pick a winner right now, it would be her. So,
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same. On the way into the round table, we've got some mevs, some interview voiceovers as
mm-hmm.
always. Tyler, the funny thing is that we hear Tyler, and I guess it's a bit
Yes.
of like foreshadowing for us because he
Oh yeah.
says his confidence is high, he's feeling good, and I guess if they choose to play you that going into the round table
Oh,
from
he's a goner.
someone,
I knew that moment that he was a goner, especially when he said he has great friends or something like that. I was like, oh, you are so doomed at this moment.
yeah. I mean, I knew he was going to get votes. I didn't
Right.
know if he was going to be banished, but we've also got Lisa and Freddie both knowing,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to get some heat tonight. They know what's coming. Claudia does her usual chat. The prize fund at this point is £29,500. And the discussion begins, and Leon kicks it all off because I still think he's so thrown by this
Mm-hmm.
clique accusation.
Yes.
And he says, I like everyone here. I don't think I'm part of one clique or faction. And I thought that's not the worst thing in the world, but and he says, where my suspicions lie are with you, Tyler. And it's this sort of sudden shocking moment for Tyler.
Right.
He focuses on the fact that Tyler's been pushing Freddie's name for so long. And the funny thing is that Leon then says, I trust these girls, meaning Leanne and Livy. And I thought, so you are in a clique.
Right. Yeah. It's like I'm not in a clique, but in our four-person group, someone must be a traitor, and it's you. You know,
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, okay, you're in a group, not
yeah,
a
not a
clique.
clique. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. Leanne sort of jumps in at this point to talk about how Tyler like smiles to himself a lot, and we catch little glimpses of it. It obviously doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
And Tyler says it himself at some point. He's like, I'm just a happy guy. I just smile a lot. Um, Dan brings up how, the Armani thing. He says, Tyler, you didn't ever seem to really
Mm-hmm.
want to go for Armani, but then when she did get banished, you implied that you'd been behind that all along and you were taking credit for it. Of course, the whole time Tyler's like denying it. Livy tries to defend him. Again, she says, I've seen him, he's just a happy guy, he just smiles. What are you all talking about? You're making a big mistake. She clearly didn't see any of this coming. She's already
Right.
crying, which only is going to get worse.
Yeah.
Jake even comes for Tyler too, and we've seen, even though Jake doesn't seem to be part of this group, we've seen lots of him and
Hmm.
Tyler being sort of buddies and besties and hanging
Right.
around together. So even Jake says, I do have to question why I'm still in this game. And he says, either you're a traitor, Linda. And Linda does that classic
Yeah.
Linda thing where she goes, just like
Yeah.
nods when he says it. Or like, and I know we always talk about how body language is probably not that reliable, but
Right.
there is something psychological about nodding when someone says something to you that you
Right.
think is true. Um, and he says, or the other option, if it's not Linda, Tyler, it's I'm really close to you. But Tyler has this weird response, and he goes, "Well, how are we close?" And
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
know.
"How are you close? Are you kidding?" Uh, it's so there's like several people doing this like denying that they're friends with people thing. It's bizarre. Um, Discussion sort of then shifts to Lisa at this point. Anna
I'm
comes,
nodding along as you say it. Yes,
yeah.
nodding and Lisa.
See, that's why you need to watch on YouTube, folks,
Yeah.
to read her body language. Maybe that'll help you with the game that we're playing, and you'll be able to tell if we're lying or not.
Ooh.
Uh, yeah, Anna comes for Lisa, and she says this thing that I think is really silly. She says, Lisa, on the train on day one, you were, bubbly and chatty and you were really happy and confident.
Hmm.
And now you're so quiet, you don't talk anymore. You've changed so much. And I just think, what does anything on the train matter? Like that was day one. Everybody had just arrived. That's what you do when you meet people in a new place. Like you're excitable, you're happy. Of course you're not going to be like that then all the time. Like they've been here for like 5 or 6 days now.
I
I
mean,
don't
they
think it's
always
unreasonable.
use, they always, I mean, all they have to go on in some ways is we know what you were like for those few hours
Hmm.
before they chose Traitors, and we know what you've been like afterwards.
Yeah.
And so there's been a change in personality. And so I could at least see that a little bit more than some of the other stuff they base it on. But yeah, that's a big difference. And as we've heard before, just the pressure of the game can
Yeah.
can do that to someone.
Yeah. Mina sort of uses this moment again to come in and well jump on a bandwagon. If
Hmm.
someone else is going for Lisa, she might as well.
Yeah.
And she says Lisa's votes have been quite strange. They've felt quite random from round table to round table. And Francesca agrees. She talks
Hmm.
about it later on in the episode too. Uh, Leanne also then mentions this thing that keeps coming up. You reacted really strangely when I said I had the shield. You reacted
Hmm.
as if, you were a traitor and you tried to murder me and you were disappointed that I was still there or whatever. The thing that doesn't make sense about that actually is, now that I think about it, if Lisa was a traitor and had tried to murder Leanne, she wouldn't have needed to wait until Leanne said, I've got the shield. Lisa
Right.
would have noticed it the second she walked in the door.
Yes.
So actually, that wouldn't have been a moment of disappointment to Lisa. So,
Well, and
um,
also from a production standpoint, I mean, I don't remember, but don't they often, if, well, often, it's happened rarely, but if they try to murder someone who has a shield, don't they leave that person till the end usually to get a surprise reaction? Or I can't remember. It's only happened a couple times.
uh,
I know I'm
yeah,
setting you up for another lie here, but
the I think it's happened at least once, I'm sure. Yeah, to
mhm.
get the reaction from the traitors because
Right.
suddenly they have to think about how they're acting and appearing to everybody
Yeah.
else because they were expecting that person not to walk through the door. Yeah,
Right.
so I think that has happened at least once, sure. So yeah, things are sort of turning on Lisa at this point, and Charlotte brings up Lisa again. Lisa saying, "I'm a faithful as God is my witness." And Lisa sort of defends herself by saying,
Hmm.
"Well, look, you're all asking me all these different things. I'm not sure what to say other than I'm generally a quiet person, and if I've been acting, downbeat, it's because I've seen people banished in the game that I really
Hmm.
liked." Livy comes for Freddie again. She doesn't like how he looks at her, and she's crying again. She's also get really paranoid. She thinks that
Yes.
people are frowning at her and treating her like she's a bad person. I'm pretty sure they're not. She's just incredibly fragile by the looks of it.
Yeah, that's paranoid is the word that I have as well, and all the same things. That she feels like she's the one being picked on, and it's like, have you seen how people have treated Freddie? Uh, and yeah, again, the frowning or looking suspiciously or whatever she's even talking about at the table. I see that you're looking at me.
Yeah.
It's like you're in a circle. Everyone's looking at everyone, and yeah, she has gone full blown paranoid at this point. And I said earlier that Leanne had main character syndrome. Livy believes literally everyone is staring at her and focusing their traitor-esque attention on her.
Yeah. I mentioned this in the previous episode, but you can see in the credits of the show they have like a psychologist, a couple of people on the staff who are there to kind of look after their mental well-being. I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure someone would be having a chat after this episode
Yeah.
with Livy to, reassure her it's just a game. This is not real life. It's time for the votes at this point, I reckon. I kind of don't need to go through them all one by one, and
Mm-hmm.
because there ends up being pretty much a landslide.
Right.
I'll start us off. We've got Anna first. And Anna goes for Lisa. That's not really a surprise. She was just accusing her a minute ago. Alexander also goes for Lisa. And then Mina, Leanne, Leon, Dan all vote for Tyler. And Dan backs it up by saying, look, when all the people who are closest to you think you're a traitor, that's a bit worrying. There's
Mm-hmm.
got to be something in it. Of course, he's wrong, but I get the thinking. Linda's next. She plays along. She votes for Tyler. I can't remember what she says. Something just very Linda, very like that she doesn't need to say. She's like, I'm just going based off of the evidence brought here tonight. Linda, you're doing too much. Stop it. Uh, Livy, of course, is next and votes for
Yes.
Freddie.
Yes.
She invents a word. She says, I'm she says, I'm totally defleeted. I don't think defleeted is a word. I think she's sort of mixed up like defeated and
Deflate.
deflated.
Yeah.
Maybe she's defleeted. And she's crying, of course. Tyler votes for Freddie. And I think, I was feeling a bit bad for Tyler, but actually, I found this quite annoying what he said here. He was just took another final chance to be really unpleasant to Freddie. He could have just voted for him and said nothing. But he just says this sort of unnecessarily rude thing. He says, I'm voting for you, Freddie. I think you've got everyone wrapped around your little finger. And it's just
Yeah.
it's just so unpleasant. Like,
It's like Freddie has people wrapped around his little finger. Come on. I mean, the other thing is, Tyler, you should have read the room and voted Lisa. Now, it doesn't end up
yeah.
mattering, but Lisa is the closest one to him in terms of votes here. So why are you voting for Freddie in this moment? Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's very true. It's we've seen it in a few of the episodes now that
right.
quite often people maybe I get you're caught up in the game and the round table from everybody's account is incredibly stressful, but
Hmm.
you yeah, you got to read the room, think tactically and strategically who's going to get the most votes to keep me safe or get rid of the person I want to get rid of. And yeah, some of the players still aren't doing that. They're sort of throwing away votes. And after Tyler, yes, it's almost a landslide. Everyone else but Fozia now votes for him. So that's
Hmm.
Francesca, Joe, Lisa, Freddie, Alex, Charlotte, Jake. So of course, Tyler is now banished with an overwhelming majority. He
And
stands
look,
up.
no Livy votes. After all that everyone was looking for her, no Livy
Yes,
votes.
yeah, exactly. Um, while Tyler is giving his speech, of course, Livia is continuing to have her breakdown.
Hmm.
He says, I just want to say I love all of you, of course. Uh, it's just a game, even though I said this really horrible thing to Freddie a minute ago. Keep going, smash it. I am. And he says he is faithful. And sort of,
Yes.
very quickly, like, jogs off. I just don't think he's in a great mood at all, which, I get. I would also be really annoyed.
I'm
Um,
wondering, I have noticed this season that they seem to, once they say the word faithful or even traitor for the one, they quickly turn around and go. So I'm wondering if they've been given instruction, don't hang around after that. Say the word,
mm,
say whatever you want before it, but say the word and then go.
yeah, possibly. Yeah, I could believe that. They're all shocked. I noticed there's a shot of Fozia who just sort of shrugs, like, yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
But yes, they're. so many of them went from they've got it completely wrong again. And
Right.
Claudia does her thing of, like in the last episode, she really hams it up and says, Faithful, you've done it again.
Hmm.
She says, I tell you what, the traitors are smashing it. And I think again, she says, like, sleep well. And off she goes. Livy gets up, she goes off crying. The
Nobody's
general,
listening to me.
the general atmosphere is just totally sort of defeated and dejected
Hmm.
and deflated, as Livy would say.
Defleeted, yes.
Deflated atmosphere today. We get a bit of Mina, of course, in our interview saying it's the easiest win we've had as traitors so far. Thanks, guys. She's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we've got Leanne talking about, they leave the room. She's saying, I just don't know what to do now. Where do I go from here? Livy's annoyed that she was blindsided, as she says. I didn't know that was going to happen to Tyler, and you all just jumped on a bandwagon. I mean, she's right. They kind of did.
Yeah, they
Um,
did, but that's what happens. And it's, people go to comfort her. Even Freddie goes to comfort her. And if I were Freddie, Freddie's much nicer than I would be. I'd be like, screw off, lady. You keep calling me names and shit. So, no, you go do whatever you want.
We've then got this really important moment outside. Well, I think it's going to be an important moment. Maybe it's not. With Mina and Dan again, they are having their quiet
Hmm.
nighttime chat just outside the house. Um, and it's just a sort of moment of friendship between them. Dan saying that they're both Scousers. They're kind of like roughly from the Liverpool area. They've got a
Okay,
similar accent.
I didn't know what a scouser was
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
I figured it was something in an area, but
Yeah, from Liverpool or close to Liverpool, they've got a similar accent. Beatles land. And Dan saying, Mina's my girl, Mina's been my girl from the
hmm.
start. And I just worry and I'm excited on a really horrible level, that they this is going to be important. Like she's going to get him good.
Yeah.
She's got him
At
where
the
she
end,
wants him.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he even says you can have an image of yourself that you're good at the game, and then this happens. And I'm thinking, well, Mina is good at the game. So, half of the two of you are.
Yeah.
And he tells us people are going to get suckered in by those they like and trust, which he says just before saying Mina's his girl.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to realize how those two statements go together.
Yeah. Or maybe, he will at the last minute think, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be smart about it and think, I maybe shouldn't be so trusting of Mina. We'll see. I'm
Yeah.
excited. We get a bit more of Jake coming for Linda back in the house. He just asks her, Linda, are you a traitor? Then, of course, Linda, in her great acting style, just goes, No, what is wrong with you? It's just so funny. She just says she's good at hiding her emotions. She keeps everything inside. This is just what she's like.
Hmm.
Um, Francesca talks to Lisa again, sort of says, You've got these weird votes. You're really confusing me. But the main thing about you, Lisa, is this religious thing. This God is my witness. What's going on? So now Lisa's like, right, people keep mentioning this. She
Hmm.
thinks she needs to do something about it. She gathers them all together and just tells them the truth that she's an ordained Anglican priest. Um, there's lots of things I want to ask you here. So she says to them, I would never ever take God's name in vain. Okay. She says, the oath
Hmm.
I took as a priest means I cannot deceive and I cannot be treacherous. And so I thought, first of all, this isn't real life. I think God would be okay with you playing a game.
Right.
I don't think this counts, probably.
And this is
Um,
something that's come up in, throughout reality TV history, where some people are like, I'm very religious in real life, but God understands this is a game.
yeah.
And, so I did it come up even on Survivor UK? Wasn't there
Uh,
someone who taught, maybe I'm
I can't
misremembering,
remember.
I'm confusing, uh but yeah, it has come up before. And then there are other people who come in and they're like, I'm religious and I'm going to play this game the correct way, the honest way, because I cannot tell a lie, even in a game. And it's like, well, then I want to play poker with you. But of course, they probably wouldn't because that's gambling. And So yeah, she says this. I could understand it if she came in with the collar on
Hmm.
and then used being a priest to gain false trust and lie.
Yeah.
That I could understand. But she specifically didn't come in as a priest. So why can't you lie?
Yeah. Yeah, she was kind of being deceptive already in a way. Like
Mm-hmm.
she's already done it by not telling them. And I talked probably in episode one, I think, with Lindsay about whether or not this was a good idea to keep this a secret. But what I now wonder is it a mistake of her to reveal this at this point? Like, should she have just continued with the secret? Like, has she done the right thing by telling them all this now?
That's a good question. I mean, it gets her out of the threat of being banished.
Yeah, but
But as she said,
I think she's probably just going to get murdered in the next few
yeah, because
episodes.
she said that it leaves her wide open to be murdered.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, as we'll later find out, she's not even in consideration in the top three this time. But I think that's because the traders are like, we can get her anytime.
yeah,
So, and it's not like she's some huge strategic threat at this point, although she could turn into one if, once people do start listening to and believing her, if she, gets any sway. The
yeah.
problem she's been having is she had, like I said, she hasn't had any strategic mindset either. So I don't know if she is under one of the traders' wings right now,
Hmm.
which is a protected spot. Now, at some point, she may realize that. I don't know. It does get banishment off the table for her.
Yeah. I know that Lisa
So,
doesn't want to lie, but what if she has a dream that a saint appears to her in a vision and she tells the other players, like, I've had a vision, guys. Jesus came to my room last night and he told me who the traitors are. I want that to happen because I think it would be really funny.
that would be why there's no psychic on this time. It's her instead, and
Exactly,
instead
yeah.
of saying the spirits told me who it was. Um, she doesn't seem to be that type, from what I can tell.
You never know.
She's not. It doesn't appear to be one of the evangelicals who says God talks to me every day.
Yeah.
Maybe production is whispering, Lisa, this is Jesus.
Yeah, through a secret speaker in her room.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, there's kind of a moment of levity though, which did make me laugh because Joe asks the very thing. He's like,
Yes.
"Why, if you can't lie, why did you come on this show where you could become a traitor?" And she just makes a joke of it and deflects with a bit of humor and says, "What self-respecting murder mystery doesn't have a priest?" And they all laugh and
Yeah, and I
they
think she
seem
said the
to,
same thing in episode 1 when she was
yeah,
introducing herself.
yeah,
So this is her line. And, as a watcher of Grantchester, which, has a priest solving murders, um, okay, I get it. But, which, by the way, in Grantchester, those priests do not have very priestly behavior. So I don't know if you've watched Grantchester. I,
I haven't.
I assume that it's a British murder mystery, and you live there, so
Yeah,
you
so I must
you
watch it.
automatically
We all watch it every night.
yeah. But yeah, I just it comes to the whole thing, circling back to like Anna, like why are you coming here if not to be a traitor? And it's some people do just want to solve the murder mystery.
Yeah,
But that's not what this. I mean, it is what this game is, but it's also not what this game is.
yeah. And we actually, and a little bit later on in the episode, we
Mm-hmm.
have a voice memo from someone asking or commenting on something along these lines, which we'll get
Mm-hmm.
to. Um, yeah, while they're all laughing at Lisa making this joke. Anna, she's not buying it. She thinks, well, wait a minute, what if Lisa's lying and they're all drinking the Kool-Aid? There's a little religious reference. Um, so they all start to leave for the night. Well, more of a culty
which,
reference than a religious
which, by the
reference,
way,
but yeah, apples and pears.
how big a villain do you have to be to go on reality TV and
And
pretend to
pretend.
be a priest. I would stand up and applaud that move, but I just don't think you're looking at Lisa. You're not thinking reality TV villain of
Villain
all times.
mastermind. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No,
yeah,
I know. Uh, I mean, I guess Anna's just probably looking for anyone to deflect from
right.
instead of her. Um, yeah, they all start to leave for their jeeps. Lisa, yeah, like you said, she's worried she's going to be murdered now.
Hmm.
And at the last minute, Anna decides to tell Charlotte about her seduction. She pulls her aside, and very quickly it seems like tells her, "Oh, I got offered a letter from the traitors last night." And in her interview confessional, she says, "For once, the traitors are not the only ones pulling the strings." I don't think, I don't think Anna's pulling any strings here.
No,
Like, um, I don't know what she can do or what telling Charlotte. I guess maybe she just thinks, well, if I get murdered tonight, at least I told someone.
right.
I don't know how that's going to help identify anyone though as a traitor. Um,
No, because okay, so Charlotte comes in next time they see Anna's been murdered, and she says, "Well, Anna told me last night, just before leaving, that they had tried to recruit her the night before,
yeah,
and she had turned them down." Okay. I
I
mean,
guess.
the fact that she was murdered already tells them that she wasn't a traitor. Charlotte would be putting herself out there by revealing this piece of information because people could be
Yeah,
like,
she could have just
you
made it
just made
up.
that up.
Yeah. I
So,
guess what
I,
they could do is
yeah,
look back to, well, who were the people that voted for Anna at the round table, and are they the traitors that were trying to banish a faithful deliberately? So that's the only thing I can think of.
maybe. Yeah.
But I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Traitors Tower then for the night. Linda and Mina, they are shocked about everything that's happened today. The lack of loyalty, the drama, Tyler's banishment. They don't think Anna has told anyone about the
Hmm.
seduction. They're almost right. And they realize last night was a wasted opportunity and they
Hmm.
need to just murder tonight. Agreed, I think. Don't try and
Yes.
seduce someone again, just get rid of
Yes.
people. They talk about their options. Linda wants to go for Fozia for kind of obvious reasons because Fozia is coming for her
Hmm.
and is suspicious of her. Mina suggests Livy. She thinks, well, that would help add fuel to the Freddy suspicion fire. And they discuss Lisa's admission that she's a priest. Should they be worried about that? Because now she's off everybody's radar. Um,
But Mina
but
apparently didn't hear that. Mina wasn't, they get Lisa
yeah,
gathered everyone in the room. The only thing I can think of is, I mean, I didn't sit there and, count people. The only thing I can think of is maybe Mina was in a confessional time,
could
that she
be.
was doing an interview at that moment. Um, I didn't notice anyone else not being there, but then again, I didn't notice Mina not being there until that came up.
Yeah, I thought the same thing that when Linda said that, Mina acted as if she hadn't known that.
Hmm.
I couldn't quite tell. And they talk about Anna as well, and they think she's not off our list yet. We need to consider should we just get rid of her now because of what's happened. Um, so they make their decision, and we finish the episode with a few little lines from them. Mina saying, "Oh, the scandal," and Linda saying, "Oh my goodness, we're so naughty." And episode five ends here. Let's talk about our predictions. I I think they will murder um Fozia.
Yeah, I agree.
I and I made this mistake before, right? Where
Hmm.
I misread how they end the episode. I wonder if the "oh my goodness, we're so naughty" isn't as scandalous is because Fozia only just came back into the game. Ha ha ha!
Right.
Now we're getting rid of her straight away. That's how I interpreted it. And
Yeah, I think it's more than that. I think it's just that they're not picking the more obvious targets. I
mm,
think you're right not to pick Livy because even if Livy has the visit from the staff psychologist, I mean, she is just blowing stuff up. You don't want to get rid of her. You want to keep her in there to cause drama, which keeps eyeballs away from you.
yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
you don't want Fozia in there pointing eyeballs at you. And then Anna is just kind of Anna. I mean, I think leave her in there. And if she does start telling other people that she was an attempted recruit, so what?
Yeah.
And then, Leanne may turn around and, be like, no, you weren't. They came after me with my shield. I know that. So that, that could cause problems too. So I think
Yeah.
Fozia seems to be the fairly obvious choice.
Yeah. As for the next banishment, maybe this is a bit more up in the air. I'm going to maybe go for a more obvious one. I think it's time that things came back round to Linda. I know she's
Me
not had
too.
votes for a while, but I think Jake's still suspicious of her. Francesca, they noticed her and Lisa doing the
Hmm.
mission going first. I wonder if Linda's time's up.
I think so too. Wow, we're spot on this one together here because yeah, we got some hints about it with the circling back, like oh, the things that we've tried haven't worked. Maybe I need to go back to my initial gut reaction.
Yeah.
I think especially if they do murder Fozia,
Yeah.
Fozia hasn't told many people that we saw that she suspects Linda, but she's told a couple.
Yeah.
And I think it'll come back and be like, and yet they didn't get rid of the priest who just admitted she could be easily murdered. Why wouldn't they get rid of her? Oh, because she was under the wing of the traitor. So,
Yeah.
yes, I think they are going to banish Linda, and then Mina is going to be forced to blackmail.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, if they are going for Fozia, I can see how convenient that would be for Mina to just let Linda believe they're picking her for one reason, but
Right,
actually Mina's sort of puppeteering everything.
right.
Who knows? Uh, any other final thoughts about the episode you have?
Just that click really imploded quickly
Yeah,
or quickly. And I know a lot of it was the seeds that Mina planted, but it was also just Freddie being himself, like bringing it up. And I think that they trusted his emotions because they were real emotions. He was just trying to defend himself. And it truly is like he called them all that serial murdering doctor that Kaz mentioned
yeah,
before. Like it truly is like he called them all some horrible insult, and they all got so mad about it.
Mm,
And it it was, it feels like they turned on Tyler because they wanted to prove, no, we're not a clique, and we'll prove it. But on the other hand, it's also true that when you have a group like that, it is often a traitor who is among that group or leading that group.
yeah,
And so it made some logical sense, just wasn't the case.
yeah, yeah. We have some sort of comments and questions from listeners to have a little chat about. One of them is a follow-up actually from the previous episode that you were on with me, David. We talked about how someone called Dean, hi Dean, he had sent in
Yes.
a lovely donation to the pod on the coffee page. And he said, "Oh, there is a version of the show
Hmm.
where they don't play for money." Dean has followed this up, so he
He
left a little,
he didn't like the fact that I said it was a lie.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, Dean.
Dean's out to prove himself as a faithful. He left a message on Spotify, I think, saying, "Hi, I heard you mention my comment. The international version was Belgium Season 3. There's
Hmm.
no money earned for missions, and there is no prize pot at all." And he says, "You thought there might be a fixed prize pot at the end. That they're
Yeah.
just playing through the psychological maze of the game for its own sake. Cheers, Dean." So yeah, no money. It's just a game, like a game show where maybe that's more common in the UK. I know this isn't the UK, it's Belgium, but
Right.
there there's a lot of celebrity game shows and quiz shows where there isn't a prize. You just get to say,
I,
"Hey, I won."
I could see that, but he didn't say it was a celebrity
He didn't
version, right?
know.
Okay.
No, I just was trying to think if there was an obvious difference between maybe US shows and UK shows.
Yeah, that
I,
would
I
never
don't know.
fly in the US. Even,
Yeah.
they got to give him the money, even in the celebrity versions.
And this also makes me think about the UK celebrity version, which is coming, I think, this year.
Yeah,
I imagine that the celebrities will not play for a cash prize.
really.
They'll probably win money for charity.
Okay, for
They'll
charity then. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's some celebrity shows in the US that do that. Play for charity. They get a stipend, and that stipend probably depends on how long they're there.
Yeah,
So there is still an incentive for them, plus, hopefully to help whatever charity is near and dear to their heart.
yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to traders, they give them the money, and again, they're not, yes, obviously the Real Housewives of, what did I say it was,
Potomac.
Potomac, and there was another Dubai. I mean, I'm gonna guess that if they're a Real Housewife in Dubai, they probably have money.
Yeah. We've also got a comment, sort of question from Rachel on Spotify. Hello, Rachel. And then a follow-up voice message that sort of ties in with this, actually. So Rachel
Okay.
says she's speaking about episode 4, previous episode, most recent one. I love this episode, but wonder whether they could have kept the traitor or faithful identity of Fosia and Alexander secret from the viewer for an episode to give a hint of this idea that the viewer maybe doesn't always know who the traitors are. So I quite like that suggestion. Maybe that's how they could have kept us in the dark for a little bit, let us play along at least just
Mm-hmm.
for an episode. So yeah, I quite like that idea. And actually, we have similarly a voice message from Magiker. So Magiker was my co-host for episode 2 of the podcast, and of course, he has a. I said this. He's a huge fan of the show and has seen so many different international versions that I have not seen. And so he sent in a little voice message about this very thing. Let's listen to that.
Hello, Trader Podcast. This is Magica calling from podcasts such as the Trader Podcast. Hi, Matthew. Just listening to your episode with Kevin, and you were suggesting it could be quite a cool idea that maybe one or more of the traitors have their identity hidden for a couple of days. I'm here to let you know that that has happened on an international version. Can't remember which one, but I do remember it was very, very cool because one of the traitors, I think they must have been recruited, kept their hood up the whole time. So it's very cleverly edited. So they're in the kind of conclave chatting away, and Mystery Traitor just does these like very ominous nods. And it's really, really cool because you literally are guessing, okay, who is this third or fourth traitor or whatever it is. So that is a good format point, and I hope the BBC are listening.
So two things. One, is he lying? Is he trying to get into the Tradar game, even though he's not on this episode? Uh,
Maybe he's feeding me a lie to play along with.
yes. And two, is he just trying to win the game that you have up for offer? Because you told me I couldn't do it, but I wasn't sure if that was because I was a co-host or because the shipping is too much. So, that's the other thing. The other thing is, okay, this hood isn't quite as big, but I guess I could do a whole podcast with this thing and
Um, do,
hide my identity.
yeah. Do you like this idea of like maybe for an episode or two the viewers not always knowing the identity of traitors?
Um, I guess it could be amusing. It would be difficult because I
Hmm.
feel like you'd have to have such a big hood and everything. And, you can tell some of them are tall, some of them are short, some of them, you'd have to cover their hands. You'd have to, they wouldn't be able to really talk unless you give them like a Darth Vader mask to mask their voice, change their voice. So it would make things difficult. So, but I mean, it could be something different to try for a little bit of fun.
Yeah, I've mentioned this many times in the podcast that in general, they're never going to do a season where the viewers don't know who the traitors are. I just think
Right.
it fundamentally changes what is enjoyable about the show, and I don't want
Yeah.
it to change. But yeah, maybe for like, I can see them doing like the opening episode when the host is going round the round table. They don't
Right.
show us who the host picks
Hmm.
until like the very end of the episode, or maybe even the start of episode 2. I think that's about the extent of that I could
So
take.
when they reveal to each other, we also get the
Yeah,
reveal.
something like that.
I
Yeah.
could see that, so that we have to judge, okay, who's actually being a traitor here
Yeah,
and
so
the
you
like.
get, and we actually have had that before. I think it was testing my memory here. I think it was maybe a Canadian or New Zealand season. Maybe it was even US season 2, where I think there's like three traitors, and they get to pick who their fourth one is, but
Hmm.
we don't find out who they pick until the next episode. And there actually is a lot because I remember talking about
I
it on the
think
podcast and saying, "Oh, we got to play along for a little bit, and we got to guess who we thought it was." So, kind
I
of done it
I
somewhere.
they might have done that when they picked, because then they picked Parvati as the final
Yeah,
traitor.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that could have been the cliffhanger for that episode one. But again, it was Peacock. They dropped three episodes at once, so it's hard to remember where the cliffhanger was there.
Yeah. We also have another voice memo from Eve, who is sort of responding to something else we talked about in the previous episode, Kevin and I was, and we kind of talked about it today, actually, David. I was quite adamant that I couldn't understand why anybody would
Hmm.
want to play this game as a faithful. But actually, Eve had some good thoughts on, why I may be wrong. So let's listen to Eve.
Hello, this is Eve. I'm calling in from London. I'm watching your episode 4 recap. And Matthew, you keep saying you don't understand why people would want to play the game as faithful or insist that they would only want to be faithful. Um I think Kevin is right that there are some people who know that they could not hold it together as a traitor because they're not good at lying or would crumble under the pressure of having to maintain a lie for a long period of time. But I also think that there's a group of people that are really invested in their own ability to read other people and tell when other people are lying. So they want to win the game as someone who can correctly read other people and work it out.
Thank you for that, Eve. And yes, I actually, you're very, you're onto something there. I'd sort of
Yeah,
realized actually when I was speaking to Kevin, probably I was a bit over the top, but I did sort of think afterwards, yeah, and I'm a competitive person and I like board games
right.
and things, so actually, I can also see that you might just want to be the detective type, and yeah, maybe you are convinced that you'd be amazing at finding the trait. So I can see why you might want to be a faithful and test yourself. Like I bet I'll be able to find them.
Hmm.
So I hadn't really considered that yesterday. Any thoughts
Yeah,
on that, David?
yeah. The funny thing is that most people who come in, almost all people who come in thinking, I can find them, I'm great at reading body language and reading people, fail. You know, um, it's like, what was it? Dan said to Mina earlier, you can think you're really good at this game and then find out you're not. Uh, but the other issue is if you do end up being really good at it, well, then they murder you. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's the problem. Yeah,
so it's kind of hard to get to the end both by being really good, well, by thinking you're really good and by being really good.
yeah. Thanks for all those comments and voice messages. I'll let you know in a few moments how you can be part of that, how you can share your questions and thoughts with us. We have been playing a game and we're not quite at the end of it yet. I'm just reminding listeners, maybe David and I haven't told a lie to each other yet. Maybe we're about to do it now. Who knows? Before we reveal ourselves, David, where can we find you online? What reality TV other than Traitors UK are you covering right now?
Well, I am all over the place. Of course, I am on as your other co-host Matthew said. I am on the Trader podcast. Uh, and yes, I of course we already talked about this. We recorded the Trader for the Traitors US Season 3 premiere last night. So that was less than 12 hours ago. I finished that up. And I believe it is magically being edited as we are recording here.
Yes.
Uh, and so,
By the magic editing elves,
yes, yeah,
aka Mark. Thanks,
yeah.
Mark.
Thank you, Mark, who I've never met and didn't even know your name till just now. So it could be Matthew's live for all I know. But yes, doing that. We'll be recording tomorrow as we're recording here tomorrow for episodes 2 and 3, which I haven't even watched yet. So I'm trying to avoid spoilers on that. And then we'll, of course, be back here once again next week and then one more time for the finale of UK. after that, or I don't know the timing of all of that. Um, Later next month, I will once again be podcasting about U.S. Survivor on Rob Has a Podcast Network, talking about Why Blank Lost. Throughout all that time, I'm posting at least 2, often more, reality TV short videos every day on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. You can find me as at David Bloomberg TV. Right now, they're a mix of the Traitors UK, the Traitors US, Beast Games, Deal or No Deal Island, and Survivor flashbacks to older seasons. I believe Australian Survivor is starting soon, so I will also soon have that. I don't know exactly. I just can't keep track. And then there's also Joe Schmo is starting up again in the U.S. It's been like a long, long time. Do you know Joe Schmo? Are you familiar with
Never
this?
heard of it.
So Joe Schmo was a show where everyone was an actor but one person.
Okay.
And it's similar to a show.
Like jury duty?
Yes, this is yes, but it
Yeah.
was years and years and years ago before this.
Okay.
And so it was, one guy and everyone else was an actor and they made him feel like he was the star and
Okay.
everything else. And so there were a couple of shows like this early on. There was an American Idol or Pop Idol type show, similar, where they just kept the worst singers. And I can't remember the name of that show, which is bad because they paid me a whole bunch of money to advertise them on my website. Like they were my biggest advertiser ever. And now I can't remember the name of the show. But yeah, so there were a few shows like this, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, something like that. And then they've, you can only do that so many times before people start to get suspicious. So, but this is a new Joe Schmo. And they, that's coming out later this month, and so of course I'll have some stuff on that as well. Now you can also find me talking about reality TV on my various accounts. Check out my link tree, which is linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE in the URL, or you could find me more directly on Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg. I still technically have accounts on Threads and Twitter, but am barely using them because of who their owners are. So I encourage everyone to come to Blue Sky. We have good traders conversations at Blue Sky. Come there. Matthew, you should create an account.
No. In fact, someone came looking for you on the Trader YouTube page, so I
Yes.
directed them towards you. They were like, "Hey, is
Yes.
this where I found the Why Blank Lost stuff?"
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if it was like a joke or it was really strange, but I'm glad that hopefully they found you now.
Yes. Yes.
As for this podcast, if you've enjoyed, as always, it would be great if you could subscribe or leave a lovely comment or a review on whatever platform you're using, because it helps the podcast sort of stay high in search results and makes it really visible for new listeners, which would be great. You can follow on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Trade Art Podcast. And again, you can only watch on YouTube now. Things have changed slightly. So if you want to watch us, because why wouldn't you? And you can see why I kept laughing at David throughout this episode. And he's probably about to remind us. YouTube is the place to do that. And even this is a personal plea, even if you actually use a different platform to just listen, that's great. Maybe you could subscribe on YouTube anyway, because the more subscribers the page has, again, it's easier for people to find it and it appears in
Right.
results up higher and all that stuff. So it would
Click that
be,
like button, things like that.
yeah, smash like and smash that subscribe button, all that
Yes.
stuff that I'm supposed to say. Uh, you can leave comments in any of those places. You can leave comments on Spotify and YouTube and Instagram and so on. You can also email me at thetraderpodcast@gmail.com, or you could be like Magica or Eve and leave a lovely voice message. You can do that really easily at memo.fm/thetraderpodcast. And this is where I show off the prize. Ooh, all the people from the UK and Ireland who are sending me a voice memo, I'll put you in a draw to potentially win this brand new Traders board game, and I'll do that at the end of the season. A couple of final things again before David and I guess what we have been deceiving each other about. Coffee.com, a couple of people I want to say thank you. So JD, aka Nutmeg House Bear, who I think has donated before to the podcast. So that's really cool. Thank you so much.
Well, and I talked to him on I had talked to him mostly on Threads. I know he's on Blue Sky now as well,
Okay.
and we chat back and forth. So yes.
A regular listener, yes.
Hmm.
He says, grateful for new season's coverage to kick off 2025. Dagger emoji GB, dagger emoji US. So he's watching both seasons. Fantastic. We've also had a lovely donation from Olivia. Olivia says, I don't know what I'm looking forward to more, a new episode of Traitors or your podcast. Thank you for your great work. That's lovely. That's such a nice message. Thank you, Olivia. If you wanted to chip in a little donation, you could do that at ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley, just to help me with all the things that I have to pay for to keep the podcast going. Um, I think we're ready
Hmm.
for a reveal. We have been playing a game. Listeners, maybe you've figured it out. We're playing the Trader Traitor. Dave, you've definitely lied. You always do. You never forget.
You always do.
Um,
That's so mean.
I was just
So mean.
channeling the
I'm gonna
Leon
cry.
group.
You're looking at me funny, and you're calling me a liar. Ah.
I lied to you as well. Do you have any idea what I may have lied about?
I have an idea.
Okay.
I hope that I'm right. I don't know that I'm right. I think it would be funny for you because I guessed that Dean's statement was a lie. His comment was a lie last time. I thought it would be funny if you then made up a new comment from Dean and threw that in there thinking, well, he won't pick that this time. But I am picking that this time. I do not think that Belgian season 3 or whatever was actually no prize. And so I am going to say, and Dean, if this is the truth, I apologize. I'm really not picking on you. I'm picking on Matthew. But I think that the second Dean comment that you mentioned this time was your lie.
Well, I have got a big thank you because thank you, Dean. You are real and you've saved me again. Yay! Thanks, Dean. I That was completely true. I did not make that up at all.
Okay,
Dean is
well,
a
then
real person, unless he's an AI bot. I
well,
think
I
he's a
mean,
real
I
person.
never doubted he was a real person. I just thought that you were using him
No.
in this way. The other option was that it's your housemate's birthday and that there were balloons in the house. That was the other
Oh,
option. That was my backup option.
if you had gone for your backup option, you would have won the game.
Oh,
That was my lie. I
I had
threw
it.
it
I
in
had it
there.
written down, and then with the Dean thing, I moved to that. So
You folded. Yes, I took the opportunity of balloons to say, "Oh, yeah, it's my housemate's
yeah,
birthday."
and it was a perfect thing. And I'm like, oh, that's such a Matthew thing to do. But then the Dean thing, I was like, that sounds like a lie, and it would be perfect. I went into the meta too much.
You did. So, haha. Right now, of course, now I'm laughing at you. I'm going to get yours completely wrong. I wrote down three guesses. You said that your son lives in tech. I always, every time you mention your son, I think it's a lie. I know you have two sons. I know so much about them now because I always guess that you're lying about them, and you never are. You said that one of your sons lives in Texas, and I just wondered if maybe that was not true and it was a completely different place. You talked about Grantchester and the priests solving crimes, and then you asked me if I'd seen it, and I haven't. So I thought you could say whatever you want about this show. Although you did say that the priests were solving crimes before you asked me if I'd watched it. So that'd be quite a gamble to take if I had seen it and then went, no, that doesn't happen. You talked a bit about Joe Schmo at the end. I've never heard that. Again, you could have invented this. Maybe this show is not coming back. Maybe it never even existed in the first place. That would be a really big lie, though. Um, quite detailed to all be false. I'm gonna go for Texas. Your son doesn't live in Texas.
yes, he does.
No, he doesn't. No, you're still lying. Stop it.
Yes, he
Okay,
does.
fine.
However, you were right that part of the lie was about one of my sons because neither of my sons is afraid of clowns.
Um,
This was just in the storage room because he didn't want it anymore. And by the way, this will be the last appearance of it because I'm noticing there's like yellow things that could be mold on here. So I think this is hitting the garbage right after right here we go. There we go. There it goes.
Oh,
So
bye
yes,
bye, haunted mask.
yes. And so yes, that the whole story about one being afraid of clowns and therefore needing to put it away, that was the lie.
Well done. We're kind of both on like an even keel, I think. We both
Hmm.
fooled each other. We were both almost kind of in the right area, maybe with a second guess.
Yeah.
So next time one of us must beat the other, fair and square. I'll be back to discuss episode 6 of Traitors UK with an actual Traitors contestant. We will be recording tomorrow, but not tomorrow in their time zone. What does this mean?
You're going
And
back in time?
I'm going back in. I've invented time travel. And like we've mentioned, the Trader is covering the Traitors US new season, thanks to David. So the first episode of that is on its way imminently. David, thanks for joining me again so soon. And I know you're doing
Absolutely.
all sorts of podcasting all over the place, so I really appreciate it. We will speak again for a future episode. And until next time, listeners, keep us on your Trader.
And stay traitorous.